Welcome ladies and gents, my name is Byronic and today is the August 24th edition of Star Guide Sunday. Surprisingly, this week had a huge amount of little bits of information. I say surprisingly because usually right after a major event like Gamescom or PAX, there's a lull in information to give players time to digest everything. I can't say I'm disappointed because I'm basically a black hole for Star Citizen info. That being said, let's get this started. The first thing I'm going to go over is cherry-picked information from the Gamescom interviews that came after the event. To start, we learned that the episode of Squadron 42 will most likely be 10 to 20 hours of gameplay each. For those who don't know, Squadron 42 is being released episodically, similar to games like The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us. In total, that means Squadron 42 could be 100 hours worth of content or more. To put that in perspective, on average it takes 106 hours to beat the main story of Skyrim and many of the extra side stuff. If you want to go for completionist, it could take over 200 hours. Likewise, if you want to just rush through the story, it could be as short as 18 to 54 hours. The same could be said for Squadron 42, but either way, I'm ecstatic that the single-player story will have this much content, especially because I see that as icing on top of the cake of where I'm going to be spending the majority of my time, the persistent universe. The rest of the interesting Gamescom info is going to be quick. First, we learned the length of insurance will go by in-game time. Second, the FPS module is coming very soon. I'm guessing PAX Australia. Finally, the generous funding of backers has allowed CIG to not only increase the scope of the game, but to also pull features forward that were perhaps slated for development after the full launch of the persistent universe. That's right, continual funding means more features faster. On 10 for the Chairman this week, we learned that the single-player story in Squadron 42 is a mixture of the beginning of Gladiator, the 9th Legion, and Apocalypse Now. If you aren't familiar with any of these names, you should feel bad for your lack of culture. We also heard that what we already knew, that ships will degrade over time. What was new was that ships will eventually degrade even if you keep it maintained. They specifically said it would take a long time for that to happen, but even so, that means your ship will eventually end its life in a salvage yard. Talking about ships, Ben Lesnick hopefully brought the Constellation Phoenix debate to rest. In this book of a post, he states that what many of us already knew. The brochure stats are more up to date and correct compared to the official ship stat page. However, he also recognized that many people did purchase the ship based on incorrect official stat page information and allowed those who purchased the Phoenix upgrade between Friday and Sunday to submit a ticket for a full refund to be used as store credit. Now, in another post directly related to the last one, Ben posted a huge Q&A on the most asked questions about the Constellation Phoenix. Honestly, I have zero interest in the issues behind the Phoenix. For the past week, people have been constantly complaining about the Phoenix is ugly, it isn't viable in combat, and something class 9 hardpoints. Most of that has either come from a serious issue of buyer's remorse or simple jealousy. Personally, I don't care, because every ship will be available in the persistent universe. Oh, and for context, I own a Constellation Andromeda. Moving on, we finally got our letter for the Chairman. As I said last week, the $50 million goal was for the alien languages where CIG will be hiring real-world linguists to create distinctive and realistic alien languages for the Vandal, Xi'an, and Banu. At $51 million, we got the web-based known universe map, which I'm really excited to see. Now, for the new stuff. At $52 million, those who have backed the game will be getting the BB-12 Man Maneuvering Unit from Azure Sky Aero. This is a really fancy way of saying jetpack. This sweet jetpack will allow for 6 hours of EVA operation, which could be used for mining, salvage, retrieval, and more. Finally, at $53 million, we unlock the stretch goal of the Independent Arbitrators Guild. This is CIG's in-universe way of allowing staff and players to deal with player issues such as bad behavior. We really don't know the details on how it will work, but so far I've been comparing it to League of Legends Tribunal and their attempts at curbing toxic players. My primary concern here is that there should be no official moderation or indirect moderation vicariously through players of players' behavior, because that takes away from an open player-run universe. Chris Roberts straight up says in the article that they want players to have as much freedom as possible, but I still see this as a slippery slope. Hopefully, we'll hear more about this later. Moving on, Star Citizen has once again won a spot in video gaming history. According to this list of most expensive games to develop, Star Citizen is now ranked at number 23. It's not really important news, but it's still interesting to see what other games have spent when compared to the eventual depth of Star Citizen. Alright, so this week CIG released a few new things for sale in their store. First up, and probably the most interesting, is the Arena Commander Starter Package. For $45 US, you get the Aurora MR and 3 months of insurance, the full game with Arena Commander and beta access, and a bunch of other random goodies. I know a lot of people were looking for this to come out, so they can just give their friends one link to get started in Star Citizen. Next, on Around the Verse episode 10, CIG released a Citizen towel in honor of the original 42 million stretch goal, and an all-in-one notepad, playing card set, and pen. The towel is $30, while the all-in-one playing card set is $19. I won't lie, these prices seem a bit much for my taste. That makes it so much harder for me though, because I love collecting unique playing cards, so perhaps I'll give it some thought. Later in the same Around the Verse episode, it was confirmed that the escort carrier formerly known as the Panther is getting a completely new name, while the Retaliator, Gladiator, and the only known destroyer, the Javelin, is having a lot of focused work done to them. Finally, we got some stills of the Gladius, which are freaking epic. Now, since we're on the topic of things that are epic, I wanted to shamelessly plug my own video posted last week, which covered Voice Attack and the Ana profile. Voice Attack is a program that takes verbal commands and turns them into keyboard presses and mouse actions. If you want to know how to get started and take advantage of this in Star Citizen, see the link in the description below. So, it seems that the viral marketing of the Ice Bucket Challenge finally reached our friends at CIG. Both Ben Lesnick and Sandy Gardner gave it their all in support of Lou Gehrig's disease.
You ready? I'm free. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I should have worn shoes.
Good job, guys. In the final segment of this week's Star Guide Sunday, I'm going to go over the new images of the Starfarer, Mustang Omega, and the next great starship winner, the Redeemer. First up, us subscribers got a massive bank of images showing off the previous concept art for the Starfarer in its early days, leading all the way up to its current design. Some of them are familiar, while others are completely new. Easily, the most popular image to come out of this work in progress is the cockpit visual seen here. If any image were to describe a space trucker, this is it. Oh, and for those curious about visibility, this official image shows a design on how automated proximity detection and monitor-assisted controls could help the Starfarer pilot. Moving on, we have the Mustang Omega, an official racing variant built specifically for AMD card users. Part of the Never Settle promotion, where you get free games for a purchase of an AMD graphics card, well, it's a custom-skinned racing Mustang available on September 30th. Now, before you get your panties in a bunch, this variant will be available to all citizens in the Persistent universe, so don't worry about it. Finally, we have a work in progress of the Redeemer, the winner of the first Next Great Starship contest. In this, we learned how the Four Horsemen made the Redeemer and what went into the construction of such a beautiful ship. As a subscriber, I had already seen this in June's issue of Jump Point, but for those of you interested, check out the full piece in the description below. Alright folks, that's it for this week. I'm pretty sure this coming week, though, will be even more exciting with the ever-looming racing module. I plan on having multiple videos covering my take on the Murray Cup, so if you're interested in Star Citizen news and analysis, hit that subscribe button. My name is Byronic, and I'll see you in the verse.